you to our 42nd, can you believe it, 42nd Mini for Change lecture. What a gorgeous sunny day. Another week of summer, awesome. I love that it's so cool at night, so when you're doing your walk, you don't get all sweaty. I am just delighted to have Cassidy Kindner here today, and I'll introduce her in a moment. You may remember her from a year ago when she did a fantastic group discussion with us. It was so wonderful, so we have her back again. Did you want to do a quick recap, though? We had a wonderful 4th anniversary party, potluck party. Do you remember how hot it was? Oh my gosh. This time we were daring, we went out to Discovery Park, and our food does not wilt, but we did. I want to show you some of the best of, and of course they will appear in our cookbook eventually in my spare time. So this was Lori's salmon ball appetizer. Oh, that was really delicious. And it was so pretty too. Almost too pretty to eat. And you know, there's so many categories, but even though this is really a salad, it was a steak salad. Margaret brought it. Man, that was delicious. She just whipped it up at the last second, but I think those are kind of the best. And I think it was also pretty. Most colorful. This was Deborah's Fornio and mango salad. Just extraordinary. I just love the presentation as well. It was delicious. Another main dish, you know, I kind of lost track of all the categories. I think we even forgot about best veggies or something. But this, I'm sorry, Mo, this was absolutely my favorite. It was beautiful. It was this paleo quiche with a very unusual crust and these, you know, quite a labor of passion, I think. It must have taken a while to make, but it was divine. It was so pretty too. And then Teresa's dessert, those were incredible. The picture does not do them justice. And I don't remember if this was the one with cinnamon or not, but they were both divine. So there's a plate, doesn't really have everything on it, but it was just such a fun event, and I'm so glad you can come. But so Cassidy Kindner, as you might know, is a very extraordinary woman who actually did an externship here in our psychiatry behavioral health department. That's where we met. A year ago, she gave a talk here about communicating with relatives and friends and kind of getting that vibe going with support. And now she's going to talk about something a little different, chronic wellness, chronic disease, managing your kind of illness in that context. I'm going to get her set up. She also has a private practice locally. If you need business cards or links, she has an awesome web page with lots of good information on it. So just take a mini break and we're going to get her going.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about chronic wellness, staying motivated in the midst of chronic medical conditions. So for those of you who do not know me, I am Cassidy Kindner. I'm a marriage and family therapist. I'm also a medical family therapist, which means that I have specialized training to work with individuals, couples, and families who are living with a chronic medical condition. So I guess I kind of fill the role on your healthcare team of the person who understands, with specialized training, to understand and address those psychological issues that can come with living with rheumatoid arthritis, MS, diabetes. These things can be exhausting. They can take a toll, right? These are biomedical conditions or physical conditions, but that can take an emotional toll. And so I think it's really important that we can address both of these things. And it can wear you out. I've had diabetes myself for over 20 years, ulcerative colitis for about 10, so I'm kind of collecting autoimmune conditions. So I understand it can be work, right? It can be a lot of work. It's a full-time job sometimes. A job you did not sign up for, a job that has very few benefits, lousy pay, and no vacation usually. So it's really important to be able to stay motivated and stay engaged when you've got this job that you didn't sign up for. But it's possible. It's possible to hang out in there. So I'm going to tell you Jan's story. Jan is a client of mine whose name and maybe some details have been changed to protect her identity. Jan is 52 years old. She has had MS for 10 years. 5 years before her diagnosis, she'd been in 2 car accidents and suffered head and back injuries, and it all seemed to be catching up with her. In her former life, she was a successful trial attorney and the reliable go-to person in her family. I'm guessing if there are mothers out there, you know what that's like. After her diagnosis, though, things began to change. So as her MS started to worsen, her cognitive abilities became impaired. So she had a hard time finding words, she had difficulty articulating herself, she had to stop practicing law, she had to start using a walker, and she began to isolate. And her friendships kind of went by the wayside, and she really, really started to struggle with this question of why me? Right? Why is this happening to me? And this is a tough one. If you look at Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief, a lot of times this process of being diagnosed with a chronic medical condition, kind of working through it, and coming out the other side looks a lot like the 5 stages of grief. I've seen this both personally and professionally in that it's hard not to feel like a part of you have to leave behind when you've been diagnosed with something like this. So it's pretty, I mean, it's kind of normal that you would go through denial, anger, hating everybody, including your own body, because people oftentimes feel very betrayed by their own bodies. Bargaining, right? I'll do anything if you'll just heal me. Depression, of course. And then eventually, hopefully, acceptance. Can anyone tell me the difference between acceptance and giving up? What's the difference? Anyone?
Isn't giving up a lot like depression?
Kind of, yeah.
Because nothing's ever going to change and it just feels terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So the dab day, that's how I like to think of it, but I've made it dab day because I like to throw empowerment in there. I think that it's possible to empower yourself through these things. And I'll get a little bit more into that. But it's pretty normal to feel swallowed by these diagnoses, right? And to have judgment about them and to really just feel like it's unfair. Because it is. It's totally unfair. So if we look at Jan's story, when she came into my office, she had these very strong beliefs that 1, I am a sick person and I am doomed to never be well. And 2, that I am a burden and can no longer contribute. Right? A successful trial attorney who used to bring in lots of money can no longer do that. That's rough. A mother who used to be able to provide for her children, just do things for them, right? Could no longer do those things, could no longer make Thanksgiving dinner. That's loss, and that's hard. And so I'm curious, when you hear these things, or if you thought these things about yourself, how do you feel? Like, is this inspiring? Is it deflating, maybe? I mean, if I saw this stuff, that's a really hard way to think about things and to still change and to still feel motivated to make changes. Motivation is impacted by the way that you see your story. Your story matters. How can you, Jan came into my office and said, I'm so tired of feeling this way. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I just want to be free. But how can you be free when you believe those things about yourself, right? How can change come into play when those are your truths? So what did she do? She rewrote her story. Rewriting the story, right? I am not my condition. This is a big one because kind of like if we're looking at illness in terms of having a job, it's funny, if you go to a party, people are like, oh, hi, what's your name? What do you do? Right? We want to know what you do. A lot of us feel defined by what we do or how we are useful to others. And a lot of times we identify ourselves by, what we can do in our jobs, right? And when you've got a chronic condition that can become really sort of invasive and very prominent in your life, it can be really hard to separate those things out and to not feel like, because I felt this way, like with diabetes, you know, there's this idea that there's a diabetic, right? And I do not like that word because there's no canceretics. I am a person with diabetes. So diabetes is a part of me, but it's not all of me. And this is a really, really important distinction to make. I have insight and compassion I would not have otherwise known. This, again, very much resonates with me personally because, you know, having experience with several autoimmune conditions, I've found a way to relate and connect with people that I am so grateful for. I think it does sound a little bit Pollyannish, but I don't care, I like Pollyanna. There are ways that you can, when people understand what you're going through, it can be amazing. Like I have an insulin pump, and I went to the grocery store the other day and I saw somebody's like tubing hanging out, and I got so excited because someone else gets it, and we didn't even have to say anything to each other. We just, you know, I felt understood, and that is an invaluable feeling. So I love that I can do that with other people. Love of self and from others is not dependent upon what I can and cannot do. And I see that this is a theme here, and we're talking about this quite a bit, but Jan, and I think a lot of people don't realize that they're valuable even if they're not contributing something. Chronic illness a lot of times forces you to find new ways of identifying yourself, right? Because you can't do all of the things that you wanted to do, sometimes, not always. But when you look at it that way, the way that Jan felt successful was by her successes, by what she did. And that means that your sort of locus of control, if you will, is outside of you. And when how you feel is completely dependent upon what goes on outside of you, you have no control, right? So if you depend on someone else for, I don't know, validation, which, I mean, we all do to a certain extent, but if that's how you feel like you're valuable and you don't get that feedback, then you feel awful. And so I feel like this, when we look at chronic illness, it's a way to reframe and see just how valuable we are, even if we're not sort of contributing in that traditional way. I like to do this one. It's not because of what you can and can't do, it's because you exist. And I think this is kind of a hard one for people to swallow, which I totally get. But like, if you think about your son or daughter, or I don't know, somebody who's close to you, and say they didn't make the soccer team, you know, would you stop loving them? No, they didn't make the soccer team. That doesn't mean that you don't love them anymore. You love them because they exist. And I think that's a hard one to swallow, but it's true. So how do you rewrite your story? Learn from and build on previous successes. So actually, everybody here knows how to write a great story. I'm guessing none of you would be here if you hadn't had successes in life. So you've got some under your belt. You might not really know what they are, but if you can identify them, you can kind of have a model for how to do this. So like for Jan, right, she was a successful attorney. She took that and learned how to really advocate for herself, because that's really important when you have a chronic medical condition. Building on previous successes, really getting that sort of the momentum going, I think, is helpful. Faking it. Doesn't always feel real, but you gotta fake it till you make it, right? And this was important to me, is making sure that you have a core group of people who know that you're faking it and know why you're faking it and can support you in that and can hold hope for you even when you can't hold it. Because it can be really hard to hold all of this by yourself. So having support is really key, and you don't always have to feel like 100%, oh, I got it, I'm going. You can fake it sometimes, that's how you do it. And as you build that muscle, it gets stronger, and you don't have to fake it as much.
Do you mean like Gameface or?
Yeah, kind of like Gameface. What do you mean? Like
if you're having a bad day, or if you're not feeling well, like, just pretend you're fine? I mean, that's what you mean with.
I mean, to a certain extent, I think, you know, if you're trying to go about your daily life, and there's people who you don't necessarily feel safe telling these things to, yeah, kind of just, I can get through it and I can do it, and just feeling like you're strong enough to do it. I mean, sometimes we don't always feel like we have the strength, but pretend like you do. Sarah, I had, it wasn't Jan, it was another person, but she didn't really feel like she had any successes, so she thought about Rene Russo's character in the Thomas Crown Affair. You guys seen that movie? The Thomas Crown Affair?
The remake.
The remake. Oh, sorry. Okay, well, so in the remake, Rene Russo is in the remake, and she is like smoking hot and super confident and just doesn't take crap from anyone. And so, I mean, yeah, if you feel like you don't have that in you, model it after someone else. That's totally fine too. The big one is decide, right? This comes down to a decision. Does a chronic condition overwhelm you and take you over, or does it empower you? It doesn't always have to do one or the other. And actually, either one of these is okay, but they both come with consequences, right? I've had plenty of people come in and they do feel like, you know, my diabetes is just taking me over and I can't do it anymore. And so we sit in that. And once we sit in it, we get through it. But sometimes, I mean, that's your choice. And both choices do have things that come from them, right? Feeling empowered, often it can be a little bit tiring sometimes if you feel like you always need to do that, which is why I think it's kind of a good balance to spend more time on that empowerment side, but it's okay. It's okay to struggle too. That's totally normal. It's just when you stay in it. It's when you stay there. So remembering that motivation is impacted by the meanings that you've made. Your story matters. It's okay to struggle. It is definitely okay to struggle. Just keep kicking, right? So if this is like, life is like being thrown into a river and you can't stop kicking, or you go down. So just keep kicking. You don't always have to know. And then you can maybe get some like little life raft people to come in and help you out a little bit. You just gotta keep going. Getting support, right? And this one is being courageous. It's okay to be afraid, right? And it's good to feel the fear. What I'm asking, or what I'm suggesting, is that you feel the fear and you do it anyways. You are walking along, because fear can have a very, very loud voice and can kind of drown out everything else. So you walk along, you say, hey fear, and you keep walking. And you keep going. It's still a choice. It sucks because you don't have a choice that you have a chronic medical condition. You don't have a choice there. But you do have a choice about how you deal with it. You do have a choice about the way that you see it. And it's not always easy to look at it as something that is a blessing, God forbid. I mean, but you do have a choice in that way. Strengthening your story by celebrating your successes. Right? If we looked back at Jan's sort of two stories about herself, which one feels, it doesn't even matter which one is true necessarily, it's just which one is it that actually makes you feel empowered and gets you off your butt. It's not that first one, it's the second one. It's looking at how you are, how you've already done this, how it's not a pipe dream, how you can build on that and you can keep going. So, I believe that is it. What we would like to do is, sort of this was the idea, was to have sort of a short presentation and then to really talk about this stuff. So I have a couple of discussion questions.
It's interesting, you can apply this to so many things other than chronic disease, but how it kind of comes full circle. But yeah, so you want to say a few party comments?
I was struck by how empowered everyone in this group was. And it sounds like that is in large part due to this program. That people just really felt, I mean, I think I heard the words, the sky opened and the right one, and
Wow.
yeah. So it sounds like there's a lot of really great support here, and you're all pretty empowered to be well and to live healthy, and that's wonderful. We had a couple. There was can be courageous moving forward. I think one of the things that you had said,
Yes, having the courage not to look back at your failures, but just having the courage to look forward to the successes that you're going to have. But it takes courage not to keep looking back and blaming yourself for the things.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
She has courage. Linda's going to embark on a 2-month cross-country RV trip. Please join me in thanking Cassidy for coming here.
Thank you guys so much.
We'll have her back next year for sure. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you.